Good evening, everyone. The time is 6:43 on Tuesday, May 10th, and I'd like to call this meeting to order. First is our consent agenda. First up, minutes from April 26th. Any comments, questions, anything on those? If not, I'll take a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes on April 26th.
Second,
I'll second.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Approved unanimously. Oh, also, just note, Audrey is not here, but we still have quorum. Next is warrant 65, 66, and 68. Any comments, questions, anything? If not, I'll take a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the warrants 65, 66, and 68.
All those in favor?
I'll second.
Oh, thanks.
You're welcome.
That's great. Now is everybody in favor? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Oh, Lord, it's been one of those days, I guess. I can't tell. Next is visitors' comments. Any citizen wishing to speak before the committee must sign in with the administrative assistant prior to the opening of the regular session of the school committee. The visitor will identify themselves by name and address and shall speak for no longer than 3 minutes. For anyone who is unable to sign in ahead of time, we ask that you clearly state your name and address so that this information can be included in the record of the meeting. Do we have any visitor comments? I can't read the names. Is it all staff or?
I don't know. I need to lie, doctor.
Okay, we'll give it a second. Okay, seeing none, we'll move along. Marcus and Cheryl, are either one of them online? No? Okay, so we'll move right along. Next up is new business. Introduction of the principal. Stephen.
Great, thank you. So excited to make 2 announcements tonight. I'll start at the Granby Junior Senior High School. As you all know that Mrs. Jordan has been in the role of interim principal for the year. And she has applied and we have worked out a contract to make her the principal moving forward. So I think I'm happy for her and I think she's happy to be dropping the interim tag. And I'll give you a brief introduction, even though you all know her. Mrs. Jordan graduated from Westfield State College in 2004 with a major in movement science and a concentration in health fitness. After graduation, she attended Worcester State University as the women's assistant soccer coach. During her time there, she earned her master's degree in health education. In 2006, Mrs. Jordan began her educational career with the Amherst Public School District as a health education teacher. After working 2 years in Amherst, she transitioned to Quabog Junior Senior High School as a health and physical education teacher. While at Quabog, she assumed many leadership roles, such as class advisor, as well as advising their student council. Through these experiences, Mrs. Jordan shifted her mindset with aspirations to become an administrator. She enrolled in an educational leadership program at American International College in Springfield and earned her certificate of advanced graduate studies. She made the difficult decision to leave a place that she had called home for 10 years and took the role as an assistant principal in Granby. After her first year, she also assumed the athletic director position. She would describe the next 6 years as a blur, and after getting her bearings as an administrator, she quickly filled the role. Both roles became her passion, and she would tell you to this day that she's not quite sure how she managed both, but loved every minute of it. Mrs. Jordan found a new home and has committed herself to the Granby Public Schools. She is excited to continue her journey as our new principal of Granby Junior Senior High School. And I will say one thing that I've taken away from the search process at East Meadow and simultaneously having conversations with Mrs. Jordan about the junior senior high school role, I think one thing, and we've all been on hiring committees, and one thing that we often look for in staff is looking for is some consistency and some stability and somebody who's going to be committed to the district. And we don't want to be going through this again in 2 years or 3 years. That's the sentiment that I've heard in many hires that I've made. And I think we have that in Mrs. Jordan, and I'm excited that she is on board to take on the position in full moving forward. So Mrs. Jordan, do you want to come up and say hi to the committee? And there's going to be questions.
I'm so sorry.
Welcome, officially.
Yes, I'm really excited.
We are too.
Yes, to be in the role and like Steve said, to drop the interim tag that comes along with it. And while I understand, right, it takes time to be able, like, I appreciated that experience to be able to do that. It's like a year-long interview, you know, to be able to show that you can. I went into the year thinking to continue steering the ship. And now I've switched the analogy to landing the plane. And the wheels quite aren't out yet, but our seatbelts are on and the oxygen masks are down.
I
So
hope they're not down. I hope it's going to be a much smoother landing.
It's not that dire.
Yeah, so I'm super excited. I've been in education, this will be my 18th year, and started along the way. I'm a firm believer that being in the classroom is important, you know, because you can constantly refer back to being in the shoes of the teacher. And I think that's really important. I know it's important to the staff as well. And at the same time, like learning how to be a leader, right? And in my position as assistant principal, I've learned so much, right? And the two roles are completely opposite, you know, and you get your feet wet in attendance and discipline as an assistant principal. And it's like you work extra with the parents because you're not always the pleasant phone call, right, that's made home. And so it's like extra work, it's extra hard to just try to build those relationships. So I appreciate the experience of being in the assistant principal role, and I really believe that it's helped me shape who I've become and established, you know, this position that I'm in the district, you know, so I can be able to pick up the phone and have those challenging conversations with parents, and they know and they can feel that you are really looking out for their child's best interest. So it's nice to be able to do that. And I don't think any parents would disagree, right? That we have their students' best interests at heart, as challenging as some of these conversations will be. But yeah, I'm really excited.
I'm thrilled that we were able to negotiate a contract and that you're staying, because I love watching you interact with the students. And it's in the same vein that Mr. Sullivan had when he was the principal and still has as a superintendent. It's great for consistency, but they'll love you. Like even when they're being disciplined, they just really respect you. And I hope you can see that from their end, you know, like they love you. The kids really look forward to seeing you at their games and just interacting with you. And to me, it's just a perfect fit. And I'm just thrilled. This is great.
And I appreciate like the athletic director role too. As exhausting as it was, you don't really realize how exhausting it is while you're in the role. And I love being on the sideline. And that's something I like didn't realize how much I was on the sideline. So I've always said since I took the interim position, like I don't miss athletics, but I do, because I miss being on the sidelines with the kids. But I was missing from home, which is really hard to be able to like come to terms and acknowledge that piece. And with Steven coming on board, and he's an amazing leader, and I've learned so much. And one of the first words we had a conversation about was him sharing how to establish those boundaries of the work-life balance. And it's so important. I feel like it took me a really long time to get there. And if my husband was listening, I don't know if he had trouble logging on, but I think that he would be like, see, hon, I've been telling you the entire time, like you were there a lot, and I still am here a lot, you know, but if I'm not on the sideline, I'm watching at home. Thank you, Alex. Oh, he's like, I totally decided he was still here,
We'll
but
get it.
Yeah,
he
he's
has
listening.
4 other meetings. So But ultimately, you know, both roles have been really important, and I couldn't thank Steve enough, and, you know, the students and the school community for all the support. It's been pretty incredible. And great, so I'm excited to see where, you know, this school can go. And my vision, I have lots of ideas, the brain's constantly firing about things that we can do, and I have to get a bigger notebook and write them down. And, you know, and Todd's been instrumental in the support this year too. He puts up with my crazy antics and all these new ideas that come
Yeah, where's
up,
the
and
frosted tips?
the frosted tips was a thing this year, the hat in his office. And take up stock in Amazon because they love Miss Jordan on Friday mornings. But yes, so Todd has been instrumental in support this year as well, and the staff too. So all in all, like, Granby has been really good to me, and I'm fortunate and grateful to be part of the community.
Well, we're happy to
Thank
have
you.
you, and thank you for all your work this year, and look forward to continuing on moving forward.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So another introduction tonight. This one is someone that we don't know as well as Mrs. Jordan. But we have, as we announced last week, have negotiated a contract with a new principal for East Meadow School. Ms. Lisa Desjardins is a longtime resident of South Hadley. She has served as a principal of Gill Elementary for the past 2 years. Prior to that, she was principal of Pelham Elementary since 2010 and served as an assistant principal at Amherst for 1 year before going to Pelham. Before that, she worked as an elementary school teacher for 16 years at Mosier Elementary School in South Hadley. Prior to working in the field of education, she worked for 10 years in the mental health field. She received a bachelor's degree in education and human services from the University of Massachusetts, master's degree in special education from Westfield State University, and CAGS from Westfield State University. She has also served on the State Department of Elementary and Secondary Education's Principal Advisory Council and has experience working with special education, mental health, and restorative practices. Ms. Desjardins is very excited and eager to begin working at East Meadow Elementary School. In the coming weeks, she will be attending some of the school community events, visiting East Meadow School, hosting some meet and greet events to begin her transition into the school, and make new connections with the Granby school community. She will officially begin in her new role July 1st, 2022. So Ms. Desjardins, you want to come up and say hello? I can tell you all, and some of you participated. Ms. Desjardins endured a long process in the interview process. I would say we were very thorough in that process, and I really appreciated the conversations that I had with her, and I think the staff saw that as well. And I believe she's going to be a really good fit here at East Meadow, and look forward to supporting her in the transition. As I mentioned here, we've already started talking about some upcoming events that she might be available to attend and some other ways that she can meet with parents, staff, students, and the community. So I don't know if anyone has any questions, or Lisa, you have anything that you wanted to share?
Well, first off, I just wanted to formally thank the search committee for all of their time and meeting with me and talking with me and providing that opportunity. I also appreciated, Stephen, that you had a very thoughtful process and were very deliberate in ensuring that, what you felt was a good fit for the community and taking in all the feedback from the different stakeholders as part of the process. So, I was delighted to get a phone call from Mr. Sullivan while I was at Stop and Shop in Holyoke. And I do this kind of like crazy dance. And the store manager is kind of looking at me. I just better get my ready to get out of here. So I can't say I'm so excited to be joining this district. I've grown up next to Granby and, have done some work in the schools, not as an official teacher or staff member, but just, through my connections, and just, being close by, it's, such a, close-knit community. And as I'm driving through the center of town today, I'm seeing all this stuff, like craft fairs and Happy Mother's Day. And it's always struck me as such a wonderful community feel. And so I'm so honored to be part of it. I've been in education a long time. I really love kids, and I really strongly believe that kids can learn and grow, and they need people to believe in them, and they need to be nurtured and loved. And so one of my biggest questions when I interview staff is, I want to get a feel for how they care for kids and how they make sure that they're growing in all different areas, not only academically but socially and emotionally and just in their general well-being and how they feel about themselves and their self-esteem. So there's many wonderful things in place here. I have to say, I feel like I might have got to heaven coming into this beautiful new school, because it's just absolutely wonderful. And just being able to be in a school like this with so many resources and such a what I took away from my many conversations with the different forums that were held is just how dedicated and passionate that the staff really feel about their work here, how much they're looking for, trying some new things, and really making some differences in the school and in the lives of their students. So I'll be happy to be meeting more of the community and doing some outreach. And I feel like I've already got my foot is extending further to Granby now as it's coming out of Gill, and every once in a while I take a ride by the school and just like the school. So I'm happy to answer any questions and anything you'd like to know about me, or if there's anything specific you have a question about in terms of my experiences, I'm happy to answer.
I can't come up with anything.
I think one thing that, it's not a question, but she mentioned when I first contacted her, she was at Stop and Shop, and she emailed me the next morning and said that she had trouble settling that night and almost drove by the school at midnight, and she was so excited. And we had had a late night that meeting. It was like, oh, we really missed each other.
My fiance said, no, it's midnight.
A little earlier, you could have come into our meeting.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so excited, and like the transition, it's a lot to take on, and we want to certainly support Lisa in that. And, excited that I said before some of the things, and I'll mention them in my superintendent's report later, some upcoming events at the school between the kindergarten night and the arts night and the literacy night. Sharing those dates with Lisa, and obviously not an obligation for her, but she's been eager to get those dates and figure out ways that she can attend so she can start to transition in. And we're looking forward to it. So
Awesome. Well, I had asked my questions during the public forum, so thank you for bearing with that. And I know the process was thoughtful, but I'm sure it was also a lot on all of the candidates. So thank you. And I'm just super excited for you to bring your experience to Granby and see what, kind of it's going to evolve here. I'm super excited.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, thank you so much. The enthusiasm, the fact that you're ready and kind of,
Raring to
willing
go.
to jump in and start that process. I mean, it's a nice feeling to know that that's the next step.
Yeah.
And I think
Mhm.
everyone's eager to see that, transition happen in a, kind and thoughtful and meaningful way for students. So thank you for being here.
Thank you.
thank you again for coming tonight. Appreciate it.
Well, thank you for having me.
Thank
Welcome. We're so glad you're here. All right, next up is first read policies AC and ACAB. Audrey is not here. Are we comfortable with moving along, or do we want to table it for the next time?
We were all set. It was, I think when we talked about it the last time, they were kind of minor changes, just inserting the Granby Public Schools information, Granby Schools information.
Okay.
The two policies about the non-discrimination and sexual harassment were not things that we were willing to delve into making many changes to.
Right, and you're following the MCAS and the state stuff
Correct.
anyway, right? So.
And all the recommendations after Kimberly had reviewed them as well.
Is this the one that we were having trouble with the formatting?
No,
Oh, okay.
that was section D.
Okay,
And that was
that's done.
Yeah,
That was done.
D is done.
Yes.
They all start to look the same to me, honestly. I know the words are completely different, but I was like, is this the one?
No,
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 Okay,
that,
good.
Wasn't that
This
finance?
format looks terrific.
Yeah,
I
it's
think.
beautiful. Yeah. So are there any comments or anything on either of these? So it's first read, so it has to come back for a second read, or can we vote on it now?
I think our intention was to bring it back for a second read, but you guys can certainly consider waiving the first read, but.
Well,
Super just format again. It looks like
which one are you in?
I'm on AC. That's where, yes, I'm on AC. What? What was that?
Is it?
I'm just looking at where it has Megan's email. It looks like just there's an extra space in between her email. It just needs to be fixed because it is a hyperlink. I just want to make sure it works. Do you see?
What page is it?
You guys asking me for all these good questions. What page am I on?
2, 3.
I don't know. My computer just froze.
It's 3.
3. Does it look normal on your screen?
Mm-hmm.
Never mind. It's just my computer.
Yeah, it looks fine.
But
On mine, it
right
looks like I
here.
have see how it looks like there's a space in between and not here. I just wanted to make sure if it was a hyperlink, it was appropriate, but it's good on Jen's.
Yeah, it looks good on
It's
mine,
just
too.
mine.
Is that supposed to be?
See right
the
here.
header
On mine,
right
it
here?
looks like there's a weird space right here.
Yeah, it's just
Okay.
a formatting.
It's just a funky, but it wasn't down there.
Mhm.
Otherwise, looks good. I think that if it went through Kimberly and we're following the format, there shouldn't be too much that we need
That's
to.
right here.
I think like Jill said, we really just added Granby Public Schools and GPS into those
Oh, I see.
spaces that Kimberly had provided. And then added Megan's information where appropriate and things like that, so.
I'm comfortable because this is guidance from the
Mhm.
state and everything, waiving first read and voting this in, but
Mhm.
I'm open to discussion.
Do we want to do them together or separate?
I think the way it's written, we could do one vote for both.
Okay, let me just open up the other one before we proceed.
And I looked at them quickly before.
Yeah.
I mean, everything seems.
Everything, yeah, I looked as well. It looked good.
And like Jill said, these ones are ones where there's really not a lot of personalization per
Right.
se that we can do. We're bound by
Yep.
guidelines.
Looks good to me. So can I just make a motion to, or do we accept policy AC and ACAB? Is that the proper?
Yeah,
right? Accept
I
it,
think so.
adopt it,
Approved.
approve it, all of those good words? All right.
Is that your motion?
I guess I will formally make a motion to approve policies AC and ACAB.
Can I have a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Okay.
Approved unanimously. Okay, next is school capacity.
We don't have anything in our folder. Are we just?
Yeah,
go-
This
so
is
I
the
just put
enrollment
this
stuff,
back
right?
On here,
It's the first one, so it should be enrollment data, right?
I put school capacity on just because, like, I don't want it to get lost, and I just want to make sure I'm clear on anything that the committee wants. Like we said, and as we talked through the capacity committee discussion previously, we're planning next year to operate similarly as this year with the reduction of a kindergarten class right now. But we had also reached out to CES and we got those 2 quotes. Is there other work that the committee is looking for now that would be helpful? I know there's some question about what might come, right? Like we're playing with the future a little bit to say, oh, we could do this, we could do that. Is there other information that the committee would like us to pursue? And like I said, we had reached out to CES. We don't have to go in that direction, but looking at what 6th grade would look, what a schedule, like those are some of the questions that have come up. So I just want to, I asked Jackie to put this back on just so we don't get too far down the road and then it's like we're scrambling to do it. So
from my, just like off the top of my head, some of the things we were, that I remember us talking about was kind of more, if there was any more firmness around any of the numbers with kindergarten registration, are we going to be okay with the down a classroom, because we were changing it from 3 to 2 or 2 to 1.
kindergarten this year was 3. Next year we're planning on
On
2.
2. And we
Right
didn't
now
open
we're
any
at,
seats.
we didn't open any seats for school choice in kindergarten. Right now, I checked tonight, I had, based on the information I had, we were still at 34 kindergarten students registered for next year, which still puts us in
That's good
a
for
good
both.
spot.
Mhm.
Again, it could always change, but right now we're in a good spot. So my intention wasn't to put it on for the 22-23 year, but as we look forward, I didn't want something to feel rushed if we needed to make a decision for 23-24, anything like that down the road. So I just want to make sure that I'm keeping it on our radar and making sure if there's anything that the committee would like to see or next steps you would like us to do. And we don't have to decide tonight. We can always put it on
No,
a
I
future. I just
think,
want
I
to keep
agree
the
with it,
conversation.
with it living there, but I thought some of the questions that we had as a committee were just kind of some of that was numbers based, like, if we're seeing a huge spike in interest in registration or enrollment or things, then that's going to change, it's going to force the pivot.
Mhm.
And we know that we have work that we have to do for 23-24.
Yeah.
So I think that it's definitely good to leave it on there, but some of that stuff we need to know based on where we end with numbers. I know it's always a game.
Yeah, and the other piece to this, and I should mention, is next year is the year that it would be the 2 6th grades.
So, right, that was my
would mean
question.
After that, it becomes 3, depending on what happens with kindergarten. Can they maintain 2 firsts the following year? But we would anticipate likely having some students come from first student, so,
Children first.
I'm sorry, first students are bus company.
I mean, they will come off the bus likely.
That's who drops them off.
So, would we be able to maintain 2 first grades? And then it's the following year, I believe, that we start to see those sentence numbers that are a little
Right.
bit higher. So again, just trying to keep it on our radar and we can continue to have the discussion. I don't want it to be next November and be like, oh
Right.
no, we need a plan now.
Right.
So
So from my perspective, and everyone please weigh in, but I'm agreeing with leaving it on here,
Okay.
but I think that some of those decisions we can't know until we have a little bit more, for lack of a better word, like fullness on some of the numbers, right? Because there's been some adjustments
mhm.
that we're seeing, so I don't know, thoughts?
I mean, I just had 2 questions. One coming to me a lot that I've heard is going to 2 kindergartens and maintaining 2 6th grade. Do we have an extra air quote classroom now?
No, so
Because right now there's
we will
there's
for
3 6th grades and 2 5ths. So in theory,
potentially for
yeah.
part of the day, but that other classroom is going to be used in the morning by having the 3rd pre-K.
Wait, say that again?
So we have 2 pre-Ks right now, morning and afternoon.
Oh,
Next year we'll have
The 3.
2 mornings and an afternoon. So
Okay.
we'll have half the day where a class is open, but it's not a full classroom. So
okay.
that allows us some flexibility should the kindergarten numbers grow that we could.
Well, and I assume you could almost use that as like a
Schedule.
flex space
Yes.
too, if you need some,
For next year.
right, for
yep,
next year.
yes. Yep,
Okay.
so we're using all the same number of classrooms, but that second half of the day, there could be some flexibility with that.
Okay. And then the only other thing that I've gotten some feedback on is people asking, obviously still, about the 6th grade, and someone said, oh, I think that there's a committee, and I'm assuming that they were referring to the capacity committee, which I believe is dissolved at this point, right? They're not meeting anymore.
No.
Okay, so I just think it is something, like, it's great that right now I feel like we almost have a Band-Aid on the situation, but it is something that we're gonna wanna keep temperature checking, because down the line, obviously, other decisions may need to be made, and the earlier we can explore that, the better. Like, I don't see it as this, doom and gloom. I hope that we can, even if we have to make that transition, can make it a really positive thing for the
Yeah.
students.
Mhm.
And I'd like to get ahead of that before it's like we're, in a crunch and now we have to do this, and it's looked at as a negative versus being a positive thing for what they could gain from
Yeah.
potentially exploring that.
So there's work that needs to be done, sort of exploring
Yeah,
that, if there's a transition, what
Correct.
that actually looks like. And then there was all those other questions, which I don't want to go down the rabbit hole on.
Right.
What that means for us if we do that
Yep.
because of the space here.
Right.
I feel like that's super repetitive. We don't need to go down that.
correct.
Yeah, so I think we had just we hadn't talked about it because of the budget and everything. We hadn't
Right.
talked about it since I shared the quotes from CES. So I just asked Jackie to put it back on here so we could at least have the conversation, and like Jen
I-
said, it's something we can continue to keep on
Right.
the agenda. So it's at the forefront.
I just think I would almost like personally to shift the mindset of, if it's a number crunch, to maybe something that we think is better potentially for our students, and keep exploring it on that option versus, like, because we did hear a lot of potential positives
Mhm.
that I think would be shameful to kind of ignore in the now if students aren't getting, maybe all of what they could, just to keep kind of almost changing the gear of that thought being a number game only. And,
Right.
that's all. We don't need to go down that now, but just a thought to keep pursuing.
So I think we should, I'm wondering, is this something where we would perhaps consider having creating our own subcommittee for this? And
That's exactly what I was thinking.
we're fairly caught up with policy. So I don't know that we would need to, like, I think we could, in budget, we're in a decent place right now, like, to kind of mix it up and see, and have, for our next work group meeting, have consider forming another subcommittee, or we just, it's up to you guys. Do you think it's a subcommittee issue that we can do, or do you want to spend some meeting time kind of talking through a lot of the options that the committee, like, revisit some of those things? And because there was a lot of questions, like there was,
Right.
Yeah.
There-
If I
there was-
can Just totally open to opening a new committee, but I also think part of this is community relations, right?
Well,
So
that's what I was
part of
wondering.
The communication around it, the planning and stuff, might
Okay.
not fit in
I'm
there.
fine.
but-
Because, and we haven't had as much, especially now that budget's over. I mean, I've sat in to overhear other committees, but if
Yeah.
that's something that we want to,
I'm
You
down
know?
with that. If it lives there, then that's fine. We
Yeah,
can,
and if in that space you feel like something else needs to be added, we could revisit that.
perfect.
Just a thought.
So like
we'll just
that.
make sure for next week for the agenda that community relations meets, and that will be one of the things that we talk about. And then we'll come back with
Terrific.
whatever.
Okay.
Anything else on that from anybody?
Thank you.
Okay, enrollment dashboard. It's just there.
I checked in with Stacy today. I don't think there is,
Well, it looks like there's just one new
yeah, there's
pre-K.
one. It's a pre-K enrollment. That bumped our overall to 722. So
No,
again, we talked about last summer how the numbers ebb and flow a bit, but we're really at our highest numbers since prior to, like, last
Since
June,
June.
we started at 720. And we went all the way down to 703 at one point, and now we're back to 722.
It's so crazy.
It's
But
so
our number that was submitted
discouraging.
is, like, low.
The number that's submitted to is based on
708.
residents, so it looks lower than it actually is because of school choice in. and then some of those students choice out, but yes, but our October Sims number is between wherever 703, 708 was our total number, so it's likely gonna be lower than the 722, so that snapshot does have an impact.
That whole process.
I just have a question about the school choice in, like the seats that are open. Are we advertising for next year? We're advertising for next year, correct?
Correct.
But my understanding is on this data dashboard, it only has students who are currently enrolled. Do we have like almost running numbers for
next year.
next year? Like that would just be something
So
interesting to
for next year, we
consider.
only have accepted applications in. We haven't
Okay.
done anything.
That's not till June, right?
Yeah, so,
Okay.
so we're only accepting applications and I think we only have. Give me 1 second. I think we have, I can tell you what we actually have. So we only have 7 applications in right now.
For all the seats?
For all the seats. We
But that's
did
new.
receive a couple in kindergarten and 4th grade, but we're not accepting the applications and we've changed the Google form, so those grades aren't available now. So that was an error, but we received 2 in 1st so far, 2 in 5th, 1 in 9th, and 2 in 11th.
No, these are new seats, not already existing school choice.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. I don't have the number of returning. I can get that for the next meeting.
Awesome.
Interesting, 2 and 11. That's great.
Coming back. Well, no, school choice in, probably they would be returning. They would come back.
Right, this is new,
Yeah,
brand new, which is great.
I talked myself through that.
All right, I was just curious.
The other thing, again, I just want to make sure I have the information correct. Stacy let me know that the school choice claims were submitted last week. So the state's working on the cost calculations, that piece at the bottom of the dashboard that we said will only change once a year.
Mhm.
So we should have that hopefully by the last dashboard, our June dashboard. So that will switch to the 21-22 charter, 21-22 choice out, and 21-22 choice in. Do you want to maintain the 2021 stuff as well, or is that
I feel like
confusing?
just for comparison,
Okay.
that I would put the 21, 22 on the top and bump the other
Okay,
stuff down.
we'll
Maybe
play
a
around
smaller
with it and-
font or something, just, but I think it'd be helpful. I don't know, what do you guys think? Just to kind of see,
Okay, yeah.
it becomes easy to compare that way overall.
So
Okay,
I do have a question.
sure.
So these funds right here, does the state finalize them before the end of this fiscal year? Or is this based on October numbers also?
School choice.
Yeah,
Yeah, so they'll do them a couple times out of the year. So at first based on October 1, and then when we submit in the spring, they'll update again, then they'll update October 1. So they're
they'll true up for the
they
end
true
of
up,
this
yeah, they'll
fiscal
true
year.
up and catch
Okay.
up in the springtime.
And that's
Okay.
part of what the school choice claim form that Stacy submitted last week will do. So just all districts have to submit that form. So that ends up giving your final numbers.
Okay.
Yeah, so your amount can change.
Yeah, based
About a
on,
year
like, they'll give a
time.
projection and then they'll basically do a true up in the spring.
Yeah, because we just completed that claim form, the sped increment form 2, which they roll into the calculation and they'll update for
Okay,
next year.
And that's why these numbers only get updated once a year.
Yep.
Because we don't have, right, everything.
Right, it's always
Until it's
moving.
finalized, those numbers can change.
yep.
Any other questions on the dashboard? Next is the regionalization response update.
Yeah, so I think, we have heard back. we've not received any like definitely interested, although Hatfield, just today, Hadley reached out and was open to exploring shared services. Certainly something I'm happy to engage in those conversations with the other superintendents to see where there might be opportunities. It would unlikely impact the FY '23 budget, but potentially for FY '24. We actually have a shared service agreement currently with Hadley for a BCBA. So the BCBA is in our district 3 days a week and is in Hadley's 2 days a week. So that's been established for the past 3 years, I think 3 or 4 years. So, so those might be opportunities down the road where we might be able to see some potential savings. You know, I think the conversation needs to start with those places, and I think we want to look for all the efficiencies possible in our budget. What that's not going to do is have any impact on the facilities, right? That's a part of this conversation, but not the only part. So I think there's like two things kind of happening, like that conversation about shared services, we should certainly engage in and see where we can be more efficient. And then building piece is also part of that conversation, but separate from that.
So I was wondering about that in a couple of different ways. So let me spit it all out first and then you can fill in the blanks after.
I'll try.
I kind of, forgive my naiveness, I guess, but I'd like you to kind of walk me through how the shared services would work. You know, do we get to pick and choose? Is that based on the conversation, all of that? So I have a general sense of how it works, but I'm not sure how we would approach it, number one. And I'm super interested in that. But then the second part of that is, if we do some of these shared services things, wouldn't that then free up some additional money to do some of the projects, smaller piecemeal projects of things that we want to do? Like if, like the projectors, for instance, you know, we felt like we were fairly close because of a grant, but we couldn't do it because we didn't have the extra. So if we're not, you know, if we're, in my head, I'm like, oh, are we sharing a language teacher, or I don't even know. Like, that's where I don't know. So in my mind, it feels like the benefit would be able to help us maybe have money to do. I mean, I understand. I don't mean to sound like I live in a paper bag, but I understand a lot of the projects at the high school are monumental.
Yeah.
But is there any kind of low-hanging fruit things that we can do, you know, that are smaller? I know we have that facilities list, so that's where I'm like, would this then be a benefit if we can do some shared services things to have some money then to, or is it just really, it's becoming robbing Peter to pay Paul?
So I think like potentially, yes, there might be an opportunity to say, oh, we saved X amount through this shared service agreement, so we can put X amount towards this project. The unknown becomes, we still need to get that approved at town meeting, right? So for next year, like if this was in next year's budget and we said, we're doing a shared service agreement for a language teacher and we're gonna have a language teacher half of the time. So technically there would be a savings in what we were projecting to spend on that salary, right? So if you're saying we're projecting $60,000, we're spending 30, now we have $30,000 of savings, right? That we could put towards the projector project. We would still then need to put that full $60,000 into our budget that would have to be approved at town meeting. So we would realize the savings, but the town would still have to, right, vote to say that even though you're saving this $30,000 through shared services, we still need to vote to appropriate that money to spend on the project. So I think like it's certainly possible, but I don't know if that would be then something that, well, you saved that 30,000, so that should be $30,000 less that you spent. That I don't know where that conversation goes.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Mhm.
It does, but I don't like it.
Right.
Yeah.
Because I was thinking it would be our total, so
that-
in my head, we have some of that flexibility to move things around like we've done, like we,
Yeah.
so.
If Hadley called me tomorrow and said, listen, we have this need for X, right? We have this need and we need it for next year. And we can give you $25,000 if you can give us this person for this 2 days a week, right? And we can figure it out and that can work. Then we would have $25,000 in next year's budget that we have some flexibility with. Like, I don't, like, that's not
That's not.
the
how-
way, like, that's not a long-term solution or a way for
Okay.
shared services to work. But I think that's a way where, because the budget was approved and now this opportunity has come, we have this, so we could, like,
Okay,
it's a little backhanded, but.
sure. And I don't
And
want to
reform
go about,
allows
to be
schools to do
clear,
that.
I'm not trying
Nope.
to backhand anything. I
Nope.
just didn't understand.
I totally understand, and I'm just giving an example of where I think maybe.
Yeah, so,
Some of the initial confusion might have been.
Yep.
But, I don't know that I explained that as.
Yeah, I would just say the point of us doing this is to realize cost savings. So then for us to then say, okay, we saved the money, but then we're gonna reallocate it somewhere else, kind of
Defeats the purpose.
The finance committee and the town's ask of us to try to reduce costs, although that would be a fiscally responsible thing, but then we'd have to weigh, okay, what we're gonna spend that savings on, is that more of a priority than just having a full-time language teacher? Right? It's not that.
I was
easy.
thinking like this, in my head, it's like the second language teacher.
Yeah, and
We
I'm
have-
just
we have-
using that
We
example.
have
Yeah.
Spanish, they
But to
have,
Steve's point, I think where it could get tricky is we're gonna go to town meeting and you're saying, no, well, you saved that $30,000, we're not gonna approve it for you to reallocate it. We're asking you to save money, you saved it, you can't put it somewhere else.
Right, or that would be
Right?
part of that conversation leading up, right?
Okay.
That talking to the town manager, talking to finance committee and select board and say, listen, we actually realized this savings in our budget. We can share a language teacher. That would reduce our budget by X amount. Can we keep that X amount and put it towards this project that we've been trying to get through?
so to me, it's, if the shared service benefits the academics, but there's a savings to do a small project, that keeps us, like if, like we've been saying, if we can get them to hopefully them, to agree to keep us funded at a certain level, whether it's, what were you saying, 5 to 7 above net school spending or whatever it is, to have that money, if we realized some savings and we were within that, then we'd have this small, to do
Yeah.
some of the small things,
Yeah.
like maybe it's, replacing instruments for the band, or maybe it's a brand new scoreboard for the gym, or, like the projectors, because there are some things that we've had to kind of take off our list that are these small, like facility related things,
Mhm.
I don't know, new equipment or,
Yeah, again, it certainly makes sense.
but I'm not thinking about it in the right way. So I get,
I
No,
don't think you're
no.
thinking about it in the wrong way.
Yeah,
I want to be
yeah.
clear. I think we can't just assume that we would be able to keep whatever savings. I think that would have to then be part of our conversation in February, March, April to say, we're exploring ways to be more efficient. By us being more efficient, if you can still fund us at this level, then we can do some of the things without having to go to capital improvement or going to other things.
I guess that's where I missed the mark then, because I was thinking that the real crux of them wanting, sort of giving the suggestion for regionalization is, so not to necessarily make the budget go away, like the high school budget go away, and is to how can we get more bang for our buck? So
Mhm.
for me, that's where my take is like, oh, the shared service thing becomes really exciting, because the regionalization piece, and this is where I'm having trouble wrapping my head around it, the regionalization piece is ultimately the towns that we reached out to are in close to similar situations with aging buildings that will still ultimately have a price tag for a new building that I'm not sure that we're there yet, based on comments that we heard last night at the thing we were at last
Town
night.
meetings, yeah.
So that's where I'm like, if we can do some of these projects with the capital expenditure thing and doing some of that, my mind kind of took it too far. So I appreciate the explanation, but it'll be interesting to see
Yeah.
how it goes because
Yeah, I think,
I don't like,
and I don't want to speak for finance committee certainly, but I think their question is, if regionalization is an option, is it a cost-effective option? And if it's a cost-effective option, what does it look like? If it's not, if it's a cost-effective option, and you weigh that versus maintaining 7 through 12 in Granby and doing the new school, like which one is the most cost effective? Like which one is the option that we should go with long-term in the town?
okay. So,
That's my understanding. And I do think like from the finance committee and from all of our select board, school committee, I don't know that regionalization is a more cost-effective option long-term than investing in a new building or not. And I think that's the question. And what this committee has tried to do is to just say, is there a partner? Because as we talked to Common Center and some others, it said, like, we can do some of that work to do a cost benefit analysis, but we can't just do it like Granby partnering with question mark. We need to know if there's potential interest. And, you know, as was indicated last night, and we knew this, that really needs to be a town discussion. It would be the towns that enter into the agreement, not the school committees. But I think that like, that's my understanding of that question. And there's just so many unknowns to it.
okay.
I sort of had two takeaways with this. I had watched the meeting that Hadley had. Their chair did respond and sent their meeting to us. I guess, so one thing that's, you know, stuck out to me is, again, it was really stressed on shared services. And they did mention that, you know, how we can't, because someone actually on their committee had made a comment about, oh, like, it'd be interesting to do a cost analysis anyway, like for our district. And that was brought up. Well, we can't just do hey, you know, what is it with X? Like, that's not a thing. However, if we did want to pursue talking about shared services, that they were willing to, you know, look into grants to facilitate a consultant to do that. And I'm curious, is that something that we want to go down that path? Or do we want to have a conversation with FinCom and say, hey, we reached out to these people, this is what we got back? Because in my brain, they were asking us to look at this as a bigger picture to really fix the building, like the 7 to 12, to make it more fiscally responsible for the town. And although we could see savings that could work on some projects potentially, I don't think that was their intent of their ask. So I guess my question is, do we go back to finance committee, right? You know, and let them know before we reach out to Hadley? Do we want to reach out to Hadley? And
So I guess my takeaway would be, one, I agree with you. I don't think that was the intent of the exploring regionalization. Second, totally up to the committee, but I don't think this committee needs to go to finance committee to see whether or not you want to explore shared services. Shared services might provide some opportunities that we don't know, that we can certainly look into, but that would have little to do with finance committee.
And she's saying go back to finance committee and say, you know.
I just
we
mean
need
with
to do
the
that.
results of
Yeah.
the regional, I just not
That
to
is
ask
fine.
them,
Right.
sorry if
In
I
terms
misspoke, yeah,
of-
not to tell them, hey, like,
Yeah.
can we, you know, do this with this, but more to say, this is where we landed, you know, we explored the option and, you know, just as I guess more of an update to them.
Yeah, I think we could certainly even just send a memo to finance committee and said, this is what we've heard. If you want, we can draft something to share at the May 24th meeting, and the committee can take a look and decide what works, what doesn't, and
great.
see if.
That would be great. I appreciate the conversations that we've had with them. I do want to keep that going and the ball, you know, going in a positive direction. So if we can just update them, that way it doesn't fall off the, you know, that would be great.
Because based on this, no one's interested straight up the regionalized thing.
Correct.
Right.
With us. I think that's.
That's
pretty
the big-
evident.
That's, yeah,
That's pretty evident in this process is, how
but,
can you move forward if no one wants to regionalize with us?
so, and that's one of the things, just people that I know in different districts that got the letter and sort of are peripheral to their school committees, everyone's like, of course, it's super hearsay and everything, but I'll pass it along for whatever it's worth, is that no one wants to do the whole building thing because like no one wants to be responsible for a building that they're not gonna own, because all of, and I can't say it with 100% certainty, but all of the districts that we reach out to all have older buildings. There's not one new high school, well, except for Belchertown, but we didn't even reach out to Belchertown.
We did.
We did?
Yep.
Yeah, we did.
Not interested
but-
for April 27th.
But I think they've got the newest high school. So
Mhm.
Hadley's building has its own issues, based on how their school year started, right?
Mhm.
So,
We didn't know if it was-
so I feel like the biggest thing is that no one wants to get into that because it's not like we have a brand new building that we can't fill, like, hey, let's regionalize, everyone would be like jumping at it if we had if it was something where we had this building and it was empty and we wanted to regionalize middle schools or something.
Yeah.
People's thoughts from people that they know on other committees are like, that would be the no-brainer.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, and I mean, we can share certainly the information, but you mentioned in your comments last night about a building project, if we found out today being 5 to 7 years out, I'm not convinced regionalization would be all that much shorter of a timeline. I think we might be able to do it in 3 to 5 years, but I
I didn't
don't.
even consider that. I in my
But
head, it's
there's,
like,
like-
oh, okay, we're just gonna start
Yeah,
busing
like-
kids to another.
Yeah, no, like, I would be surprised if it wasn't at least 3 years.
Yeah, so bottom line, that's why I did say what I said in there, is that just sort of re-emphasize the point that the building next door, we need to do these things, and thankfully we've got both of our capital expenditures approved yesterday. We have to do something, and everything that we're considering is not an immediate fix, right? It doesn't matter. Again, I didn't even consider that, but of course, regionalization is going to take some time to work it out between the towns and all of that, and getting agreements, and
Mhm.
so, yeah.
So,
Anyway,
so for now, then I will draft a letter for you all to take a look at the May 24th meeting.
anything else on that? Jill, Jen? No? Okay. All right, superintendent's report.
So one of it's a brief update, but summer enrichment and extended school years, we have identified coordinators. We had a few people apply and we decided to have a coordinator at each building, and they're working together. Leslie Mahoney and Lynn Pollard. They both have experience in the extended school year program already, and have started to recruit staff and are working on developing like a Google-based website to share out options with families. And we know, again, I've said this every time we've talked about it, we know we're way behind this year in terms of recruiting and getting on, but like the statement of interest we said in the past, if we just wait till next year on things, then it's always going to be next year. I would rather, even if we end up running 1 or 2 weeks in 2 or 3 classes total, it's better than nothing and will put us in a better place moving forward. So hopefully by May 24th, the website's up, and I'll have some additional information on some course
Is it Granby
offerings.
students only?
For this year, our plan is Granby students only. And it would run from July 5th through July 28th or 9th. whatever that Thursday is. So the enrichment would run the same timeframe as the extended school year. So that's our plan.
You mean August?
Sorry?
You mean August 8th or 9th?
No, July 5th through July 28th or 29th.
Oh, 28th or 9th. Okay.
Sorry, I might have said it.
It's a very short.
I was like, that's a couple days.
We're running a 3-day program. Yeah, so,
Two coordinators.
yeah, we're like working really hard at it, and I know it's moving slow, but I do see this as a marathon, not a sprint. It's really a long-term plan, but want to try to get it up and moving. Also want to mention, I know Mr. Latoy had put out an announcement last night that his last day is this Friday. Certainly want to wish him the best and let families know that there'll be more information coming out this week. Sue Craigo, our curriculum coordinator, is going to take on the bulk of that role, really be the day-to-day person here. And then Megan Shepard and I will also be supporting that. Will be at East Meadow quite a bit. And of course, Scott Taylor, continuing through the end of the year. So I certainly know it's not an ideal time for a transition, but this is how it's had to work. And we're going to do the best to make sure that it runs seamlessly for the last 4+ weeks for students and families. And another letter will be coming out likely from Sue Craigo tomorrow or Thursday with some more information. Also want to remind people the family literacy and math and arts nights. There's May 25th at both schools. Granby Junior Senior High School, that's primarily the arts night. That's going to run 5:30 to 7:30, and East Meadow 5 to 7. So they're a little bit staggered. So families who have kids at both hopefully can get to both schools. As you all know, it's a short commute. The kindergarten transition night is scheduled for Thursday, May 26th at East Meadow, 6 p.m. So that's informational. The kindergarten teachers will be here to talk about the incoming kindergarten class. And Nancy really, she does a good job of keeping an eye on all things. And I know she sent something out about the weather today. So we're supposed to have some more seasonal weather, but in the 80s by the end of the week. So just want people that to be on people's radar so they can take any precautions that they might need. I know my girls will need sunscreen. So, and that's good because I probably wouldn't have checked the weather if it wasn't for Nancy. So just want to put that up there. And that's all I have.
Can we also just note that Granby PTO is starting, their first meeting is going to be this Thursday.
Really?
Yes, May 12th. Better late than never. So if anyone is listening and interested, please feel free to reach out. Jen Silva is the contact person that I have right now who will be facilitating that, and hopefully there will be some attendance. I wish I had the time on hand. I saw it, I believe it was in the East Meadow update, but let me actually bear with me 1 second. I'll take a gander. They definitely need people to help. So that was.
We can do this thing while you look. I'm also looking.
Perfect.
So it's helpful. And Phil's keeping an eye on the time.
All right.
I
Go
just have
for it, Adam.
two quick ones. The East Meadow Lightning Strike, I do actually have some
News?
Update?
information.
Another 1-year anniversary.
So as of last week, we do have 2 cameras that are not functioning and are on order. However, one of those cameras was in a non-critical area, so we repositioned, actually both of them are, so we repositioned other cameras to encompass where those cameras were, and so they're ordered. I know they've been telling us they've been on order for months now with supply chain. The company was here. They are certainly on order, but again, the supply chain issues, it might be well over a year by the time this is all wrapped up. But other than that, all other aspects of that insurance claim are complete. So and it looks like Stephanie found that information. Two, we will be submitting a reserve fund transfer for the boilers for just a little over $25,000. It's no secret, we've been talking about this. I've had a conversation with Chris the last couple of weeks just to make sure the process didn't change, paperwork was all the same, so once you sign, Jen, I'm gonna send it to him, he'll forward it to finance committee, so I just wanted to be transparent about that we will be submitting that. Again, that's $25,000 above and beyond what we budgeted to provide normal maintenance for our weather, so that's all I have.
Any questions? All right, you got the PTO?
I did. So PTO is meeting this Thursday at 6 o'clock in the East Meadow cafeteria. And that will be it's for East Meadow families and Granby Junior Senior High School families.
It's the PTO.
PTO.
CES?
We meet May 25th.
All
What
right.
time is that, Stephanie? I'm sorry, Thursday at
6.
For our agenda next time, we will have a work group meeting. So we said community relations. And we'll talk about regionalization, right?
Yeah, meeting
School choice, sorry.
Yeah.
School choice
Capacity.
capacity.
Yep.
All right. And then which other committee would like to meet?
Probably evaluation.
Okay,
And then I don't know, Stephen, when you want to talk about kind of adding for that summative, just to kind of keep it on the radar so that we know how to plan for any subcommittee meetings kind of leading up to what that would look like.
Our next meeting is June 7th and June 21st.
so next,
next meeting is
this is your last meeting then, right? Because elections are the 16th.
Is that next week?
Mhm.
Oh,
Monday.
I guess it is.
Oh,
I would have brought cake.
I know. It makes me sad.
We're gonna get out of here early enough, though. Let's just keep on track.
So
really
we'll
celebrate.
have to look at the schedule because I don't believe anyone pulls papers. So we will have to have that discussion at the next meeting. I'm hoping that,
And then we had
this
also
will be-
held off on our dates moving forward,
Right.
so, yeah. So in terms of evaluation, I don't know. Makes sense, June 7th or June 21st is the first meeting after school is out. I'm also working on my report of entry findings. I'm hoping to have that at our May 24th meeting.
so it sounds like the evaluation would be a good one for you guys just to be able to kind of iron some of that stuff out or.
Yes, well, and we might need to add a meeting or two. I think it'll depend on what we need to do, because we definitely need to have information, be able to share that with you. Have Stephen kind of present and then be able to kind of come back together afterwards. And we'll need time to kind of gather information as a subcommittee again, and then meet as a whole committee to kind of present like our actual not findings, but information from that.
So it's definitely a good benefit to have you guys meet at our next meeting.
At a minimum,
Yes.
start there.
Okay, we'll start there. All right, so that, and so I have that, having school capacity and regionalization to continue to live on the agenda. Was there anything else that I missed that we need to have for the next time?
On the
It'll be a work
draft
group meeting.
letter to FinCom Select Board for the regionalization. I'll have that, and then I'll ask Jackie if the report of entry findings is ready, I'll have her at it. If not, I'll do it in a second.
Is there any other business comments, anything? Okay. So we will vote to enter into executive session under Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21, Part A3, to discuss strategy with regard to collective bargaining, as doing so in an open session may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining position of the committee. The committee will not return to open session. Can we have a roll call vote, please? Aye.